Todd, Kyle, Dan. We'll get to the Jays. We'll get to the Leafs. But the thing on everyone's mind, or maybe it's not, but we'll put it there, is the fight that's taking place Friday night in Miami as my phone rings right on cue. That is Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. Jake Paul's next fight. It's on Netflix. Furzy, what do you got?
I just want to know why you're not going to be ringside for this, Toolsy. I figure you're a man of the people. You're first and foremost, and not just Jake Paul, but Logan Paul's Rolodex as well. That I figured that they would give you some nice velour suit. You could come out there with a Monster Energy Ring Girl or whatever energy drink they're promoting heading into this particular event, and you would be able to reap the benefits of this kind of marquee event. But I think this is the first time we're going to see if these fights are for real when you look at the current prices at Bet Rivers.
I believe that would be Prime Energy drink owned by Logan Paul. That would probably be sponsoring this one. And yeah, Todd, I'm fascinated by this because I'm a fight fan. You can't look away from the train wreck that has become all these Jake Paul fights. But for the first time now, we're going to find out just how legitimate these fights are and answer all these questions, because Anthony Joshua has one of the all-time great heavyweight resumes in boxing. And he was in shape and made weight for this fight several weeks ago. He had to drop back down. And if this doesn't end inside of 3 rounds, something's amiss, right?
I mean, look, the over-under sits at 2.5. We see Anthony Joshua, a massive favorite. You have to put up about $14 just to make $1 coming back. And while I won't quite say it's as lopsided as Floyd Mayweather fighting Conor McGregor type stuff or anything along those lines, you have to think that somewhere along the way, rubber's going to meet the road, and you're going to see an actual decorated boxer in the heavyweight class be able to do some real damage. But would any result shock you guys in any capacity if we happen to see something ridiculous like Anthony Joshua getting ruled no contest? We get a moment from the great boxing classic Diggstown where he looks to the corner, you get a quick pull of the necktie, and Anthony Joshua goes down, faking that he got drilled in the melon early on in this fight. These are things that have been great exhibitions, and I have to give Netflix credit and all the parties involved that are getting rich off of these events, because the numbers don't lie. They're giving the people what they want to see. And if you're a boxing purist, this isn't for you, but that's not the dynamic or demographic that they're going after when they launch these events.
With regards to all of Jake Paul's fights, what is the talk behind the scenes? Are they fixed? Are they all fishy? What's your take?
Fixed is a strong word, and one I'm always reluctant to use, especially when regulated sportsbooks are willing to take action on this. We have seen some interesting betting patterns in terms of the way these fights have been priced. But look, if it's on the betting board and a sports book is going to take a bet, then I think it's up to the individual that wants to wager on these things to try and take full advantage. We've seen a couple of the high profile names get in the ring against the Paul brothers at substantial underdog prices, and none of those have paid off. Look, I deal with a lot of professional bettors, guys that do this for a living, and they found an avenue where they think they could make a little bit of money betting some of these fights that are put on as exhibitions or novelties. I have not heard a peep about this particular fight, though, coming up on Friday night.
Yeah, and Dan, just like to another point, he fights a lot of ex-MMA fighters who were not known as strikers first. And if they were strikers, it could have been leg-based, but they were wrestlers, or they're old men.
A lot of them don't even throw one punch.
Well, because they were never really taught how.
It's not in their DNA to try and get out there. I'd almost rather see one of these Paul brothers fight, a lifetime NHL goon and see exactly what we had going on. Just get him in the center of the ring. Boxing strikes be damned, and just go full on brawl and see who comes out in one piece.
I want to see Jake Paul fight Logan Paul and just the battle to the death, and that's the end of it. Either way, someone has to win that one, right? And that would be the audience.
Yeah, I'm not sure the brothers are going to fight each other anytime soon, but we can only hope that somewhere down the road, the two of them will get in the ring with one another.
Hopefully Netflix has fixed the buffering issues, which we all experience. So I see it as a grand test for their platform. Hey, the Thursday nighter in the NFL is actually a good one, Todd.
Yeah, marquee matchup. Going to go a long way in determining who the number 1 seed is in the NFC. The Rams and Seahawks, that number hovering right around a pick 'em, +1, -1 throughout the course of the week. Total down a touch from where it would have been on a look-ahead number in that 47.5 range down to 44. Of course, the big injury that we're monitoring, although Sean McVay saying he's not going to rule out Davante Adams. Well, I'm going to break news here, gentlemen. I'm going to rule out Davante Adams the way he pulled up with that hamstring injury against the Lions. And the NFL prides themselves on some level of transparency for an injury report. Saying that Davante Adams could be out there in any capacity is like the NHL knowing that a player had his leg amputated and calling him a game time decision before game 6 of the Western Conference Finals.
Okay, so Todd, for very personal reasons for myself here, I'm thinking with that Seattle home crowd and Davante Adams being out of this lineup, Seattle at -110 is a very good price right now.
I think the big question is what we're going to get from Sam Darnold. I mean, look, Darnold was terrible in the first matchup between these two teams, a game that the Seahawks still had a chance to win with a lengthy field goal from Jason Myers late in that contest. They come up just short, dropping that game 21-19, but covering as a 3.5-point dog. If the Seahawks can get the ground game going, which is not necessarily given by any stretch, given how stingy this Rams team has been against the run, then it opens up a lot more through the air. But until I see Sam Darnold kind of navigate through these high leverage spots, it's so difficult for me to try and buy into the Seahawks doing enough for 4 quarters to get this thing across the finish line. Now, on the flip side of that, look, Matthew Stafford had arguably one of his worst games of the season against this Seahawks defense. They don't have to commit, additional bodies to try and slow down Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, that two-headed monster in the backfield. So I think this is going to have all the feel of a heavyweight fight between two teams that may struggle to get to 21 points in this game. No strong opinion for me in terms of the side. If I had to get involved, though, I think the total is a touch high, still at 44, with looking to go under that particular number.
We've got the return of Saturday football, and I keep seeing on the streaming services, Netflix is showing a game. Amazon, where are all the games?
These games are on Fox, or at least for us here stateside on Saturday. Netflix throws their hat in the ring for Christmas.
Christmas. Okay.
And that's what gets fun. You get 2 games on Netflix on Christmas, and then the night game is on Amazon Prime. And it's a friendly reminder for anyone that wants to watch NFL games here in the U.S. why it costs you $7 million with all the pay-per-view services and streaming services that you have to pay for to make sure that you have those games at your disposal.
But it works, Todd, because I mentioned this before that I had to get Apple TV to watch the last Blue Jays Friday night regular season game. And now I have it, and I'm like, well, Apple TV's pretty good. So they're little, hey, here's a little toy, come see this. And then they probably just hope you forget it. But if, in fact, you dive in and see that they actually have good things, you're a customer for life. So it's brilliant.
Recurring billing will go down as the greatest innovation from an e-commerce standpoint, maybe in the entire 21st century, for just that reason, Toolsy. Because when it gets to be more cumbersome to cancel some of these services, you go, the hell with it. I'm done. I'm going to pay the $9.99 a month or whatever it may be. And you're going to, as you said, nose around on those various streaming platforms and try and find something else to watch. Although Friday Night Baseball may have worked a little bit more effectively for Apple. They, of course, take on F1. The one platform that did not exactly do so well by them was MLS, where you not only had to pay for Apple TV, you had to pay for a streaming service inside Apple TV to get MLS soccer. It was like the Russian nesting dolls of professional sports.
I remember 10 years ago when I was so proud of myself for cutting the cord and saving all that money. And now my renegotiation of my contract with BetRivers is principally centered around reimbursement for all the services I have to subscribe to just to do this job. And it's not going well for me.
Wait, you actually have that opportunity? I'm going to have to, as soon as we finish up the show today, I'm going to have to reach out to the home office and see if I can get a level of reimbursement on that. But full disclosure here, guys, I think I am one of the very few remaining customers of DirecTV. But I'm just disappointed that I don't have a direct line right to the customer service rep that should just be responsible for my account, given how much money I've spent with that company and continue to spend to make sure I have 37 layers of redundancy so I don't miss a sporting event here or internationally.
Concierge service just for Todd.
Exactly. That's what I'm looking for, a little gold card to get me right to the front of the line.
Hey, Todd, we haven't heard the term trap game all year, I don't think. Is the Bills-Browns, is that a trap game for Buffalo this weekend?
I won't say necessarily a trap game, but I do think they have to be ready to go, given that this Browns team is going to want to look to try and play spoiler in some capacity. We see the Bills as a double-digit favorite a week before they'll take on the Philadelphia Eagles. The problem that I have here is that the Browns are just so banged up. I mean, this offensive line right now, is dealing with essentially 40% of what their expected capacity was early in the year. You saw that on full display in frigid temperatures against the Bears. They really couldn't get anything going. The defense isn't anywhere close to 100%. But the only way to look in this particular game would be trying to back the home underdog, catching the double digits. Because to your point, Toolsy, if this is a game that the Bills want to try and go through the motions and just get out unscathed, I'm not sure they're going to unleash Josh Allen's legs, which, as we saw in their comeback win in improbable fashion against the Patriots last weekend, still remains one of the more difficult elements of this Bills attack that opposing defenses have to contend with every single Sunday.
Looking ahead to Sunday afternoon, a little bit later in the day, the Jaguars-Broncos looks like another promising game as well, too. What can we expect there?
Yeah, big number in terms of the total. It's actually been bet up from where it opened at 43.5, upwards of 46.5, 47 earlier today. This Jaguars offense has really found its footing under first-year head coach Liam Cohen. Trevor Lawrence's numbers over the last couple of weeks are headed in the right direction. Now, of course, there is a little bit of noise and all that. You look at the opposing defenses that the Jaguars have faced. I mean, last week they shredded the Jets. The week before that, they were able to take care of another downtrodden defense in the Indianapolis Colts, who had lost Daniel Jones. There's a little bit of Titans. There's a little bit of Cardinals mixed in there as well. But they at least have an identity. And on the flip side of things for the Denver Broncos, look, I think this defense, while it's good, is a little bit overrated. And if they could only figure out how to get Bo Nix to play like he does in the fourth quarter for the previous three quarters, I mean, this team would be in a great spot. If anything, it's a short price tag here on Denver, right around a field goal favorite. But I can't understand why the over has taken a good amount of money in a game that is going to go a long, long way again, much like Thursday night showdown between the Seahawks and Rams in determining who may have a chance to get that number one seed in the AFC.
I woke up Wednesday morning, checking out the highlights and stuff, and I couldn't help but feel for Stuart Skinner. He faces his old team. Connor McDavid was like, okay, finally we get to face this guy instead of have him in net. He scores two. Leon Draisaitl gets his 1,000th point. The Oilers win 6-4. Nightmare scenario for Stuart Skinner.
I mean, it looked like he was standing in quicksand on the breakaway where Connor McDavid came in on him. You figure Skinner would have seen this enough through training camps and practices to know that he had to at least come out of his crease to cut down the angle a little bit. Lateral movement, apparently, guys, spoiler, it didn't work too well when he played for the Oilers, and he wasn't able to correct that shortcoming in his game in just about a week since getting traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins. But at least in typical Stuart Skinner fashion, he was very generous this holiday season, and a puck that probably looked like it was going wide of the net for Matthew Savoy ends up hitting Stuart Skinner's skate and going in the net. So Godspeed to the Pittsburgh Penguins fans out there who thought they were treated to a horrific experience watching Tristan Jarry over the last couple of years. God bless you watching Stuart Skinner behind that blue line going forward.
Todd, I don't know whether you had a chance to observe the Toronto Maple Leafs highlight package from last night. You should have been able to make time for it because it was 8 seconds long when they were handed a gift by the Chicago Blackhawks in a game in which they should have won easily with Bedard being out and did everything they could to lose. I did a post game with Pierre Maguire last night. We were not kind to them. This team continues to look incredibly lost.
I mean, look, I'm not even sure how they were able to get, a single point out of that game, let alone 2 points in regulation for just the reasons that you outlined. I mean, they were downright dreadful through the first two periods, and the Blackhawks without Connor Bedard really forced to simplify their game, trying to get pucks to the net, keep everything to the perimeter. But that's all it takes, apparently. The Leafs decide to show up for about 8 seconds in terms of getting, the goals that they needed to get this thing across the finish line. But you keep waiting for them to figure all of it out. I'm not sure it's coming. And while a lot of people say, well, you just like to troll the Leafs. No, this isn't a very good hockey team. Yes, having Joseph Woll back is going to help pay some dividends as he can erase a lot of those issues at the back end. But they just don't seem engaged. And it feels like a broken record with the Leafs on some of these weeknight games. When they take on inferior teams, they don't make anything easy on themselves. But hey, credit to them. They were able to get the 2 points they needed and bounce back after giving some up over the last week or so to try and at least keep themselves in the relatively muddled mess that is the Atlantic Division right now.
You know what's bonkers about the NHL's Eastern Conference? Not a single team is below 500. Every team is 500 or better.
Yeah,
I don't know if we've ever seen that this deep into the season.
The loser point, the NHL's version of the participation trophy, the way
but
things
still,
are going.
The Sabres are 14-14-4.
Here's the craziest part about it. And this is an exercise that I laughed when one of my buddies, he goes, you know what? Take away that overtime loss column, tack that on to losses, and look how horrific some of these records are in the National Hockey League for teams that just have that third column that sits there as kind of the charity case for all this. And I can say that as a Golden Knights fan, because I've watched this team lose more games in overtime and a shootout than almost any team in the league. Credit to Gary Bettman. They want to keep every team relevant. They want more fan bases feeling they have a chance to believe. And it's those loser points that allow these playoff races to heat up. But to your point, Toolsy, it has definitely felt a lot more competitive so far this year than what we've seen. We haven't exactly had a franchise mathematically eliminated for the postseason yet, although the Vancouver Canucks, before their modest 2-game win streak in the tri-state area, were doing their damnedest to try and make sure that all of their games played after January 1st were going to be absolutely relevant.
3 teams are tied for the league lead in overtime losses. The Knights, who you mentioned, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and what was the final one here? Let me find it again. I'll get it.
Well, you know what? The
Kings. The Kings.
Here's the thing that you mentioned with the Penguins and Kings, 2 teams that don't possess a ton of speed on their roster. So I don't think it's just coincidence that those teams have really struggled in the extra period. I mean, the Knights, I've kind of joked with people around the organization that they should just try and possess the puck for 5 minutes, hold it underneath the goal line, extend it, and get to the shootout and roll the dice in that particular exercise, because they haven't been able to generate much at 3-on-3. But, you know, credit to the Penguins. They've made games a lot more interesting than they needed to be. I didn't know it was possible to blow a 4-goal lead against the San Jose Sharks like they did in the final 10 minutes. And just when you think that wasn't bad enough, they decided to blow a 3-goal lead in the first 9 minutes of the third period against the Utah Mammoth. So I'd only love to know what Sidney Crosby felt like the end of his career has become playing for that organization, knowing everything that he'd accomplished, at least early on in his career.
Todd, let's stick with the Golden Knights for a second, since you're a fan and a close observer. How has the Mitch Marner experience been for you as an observer of the team a third of the way through this first season?
I'd like to see Mitch be a little bit more unselfish, honestly. I feel like he's trying to do too much to curry favor with his teammates. Shoot the puck. I mean, take advantage of opportunities when they're there. The one thing that I will say about Mitchell Marner that I never probably appreciated enough when he was a member of the Leafs is how attentive he is to his 200-foot responsibilities. And maybe that's a byproduct of playing in Coach Cassidy's system, where the emphasis is largely on defense first, leading to creating offensive opportunities. And we've kind of seen Jack Eichel go through a metamorphosis, you know, once he was traded over here from the Sabres. But that's one part that I didn't really see in Mitchell Marner's game. That's probably on me more than anything else. And we'll see if that kind of defensive responsibility or mindfulness will translate into more meaningful games in April and May. Because like that joke with you guys, you don't get to join the Golden Knights and think that you're going to be done playing hockey by May 1st like you do when you're playing for the Leafs.
The man with the most NASCAR name that's not a NASCAR driver, Kyle Tucker. Where is he going to land in the books' minds? Because if you do reading, you can have your team being the front runner. And right now, the reading I'm doing is the Jays are the front runners for Kyle Tucker.
And if you believe what the odds are telling you, he is the front runner to be a member of the Jays organization going forward. Now, I'm always one that says the longer some of these negotiations get dragged out, you begin to get more apprehensive, because it allows other suitors to kind of throw their hat in the ring and try and procure his services. If this was a deal that they felt the financial terms were close, you'd like to hope it gets done sooner rather than later, so the Jays have an anchor in the middle of the lineup. Because as we've seen with the storylines around Bo Bichette, they continue to get ratcheted up. And now it's that the Yankees are interested, but there's a caveat on potentially what that could mean, you know, to try and acquire him. So for all of these deals, I think as a fan of any of these teams, as soon as a player is linked to your organization, you want to make sure that his pen is to paper, that deal is signed, and it's passed along to the accountants, because the longer it goes on, the more problematic it becomes with other teams realizing that, hey, the free agent pool may not be as deep as they originally anticipated, and they think that they want to try and be slightly more aggressive with some of the guys that are actually out there and impact players at that.
The reports are suggesting this could be a 10-year, $400 million+ deal. That's
which
a
is
big
a
number
bit
to swallow.
Yeah, which
That's
is a
a
bit
lot.
excessive, which in my opinion, but here's the thing. If you're the Jays and you want to try and capitalize on the momentum, we've seen these deals over the years kind of age like milk. But if you can get across the finish line in the first 2 to 3 years, I think that's the price you pay for doing business, that you suck it up at the end of the deal. And you just hope it doesn't end up like Albert Pujols as a member of the Los Angeles Angels, where it felt like he needed a wheelchair and a walker to get him to first base in the twilight of his deal.
But still, he had an unreal swing.
He did. It was about as sweet as it was. it was more entertaining to watch, unfortunately, as we see a lot of the great players when their career comes to an end. The swing never really lost any of its poetry and motion. He was just 6 days late on any fastball that came down the dish at more than 94 miles an hour. So felt like me out there on the wiffle ball fields instead, Toolsy.
Well, Merry Christmas, buddy. I guess we won't see you till after Christmas.
Well, always appreciate it. Happy holidays to everybody there. I appreciate the opportunity. And guys, let's hope the next time we chat that the Leafs have not been mathematically eliminated from the Eastern Conference playoff picture.
See you, buddy.